All right, we're going to roll into to the formal presentation. Each 10 minutes each. It's going to be 10 minutes. I know. I'll give you cues, and you let me know. Yeah, and look up at me if you want to. I'll be right here. Or I'll be at the back. All right. What is this Danish doing up here? Thank you. No, that's the signal. I think it's interesting. Charlene just kind of sums it up beautifully to be like, I got to talk really fast because I could speak about this for hours. And I think that's sort of the beauty of what we're kind of scratching and understanding where we're at as a community of individuals, while at the same time kind of opening the opportunity for these conversations to continue going on and on and on, because we can talk about these for hours. So we're going to kick off our 7 presentations. Charlene from Clem Geo. There is a clicker. I put it in my pocket. And just a couple of things. I think what we heard for the live stream is that if there's any questions, if we can repeat them back so that the folks at home can also hear what was asked. This arrow.
Okay. Thank you. Well, good morning. I'm really happy to be here. It's one of my first events with ACCA that I've been able to attend. I'm usually very busy and hide out in my office a lot. My name's Charlene Becky. I have a cooperative and a corporation that I'm running currently. I worked for about 15 years or more in the oil and gas industry and decided to take on a challenge to start a renewable energy company about 4 years ago. So from ground zero, my challenge to myself was to build renewable energy projects, utility scale, from ground zero to operational. So I'm still working on it, but learned a lot in the last 4 years, and now I've become kind of an industry steward for renewable energy projects. So my cooperative in Alberta is called Alberta Energy Goals Cooperative, and so so in 2015, at the end of 2015, I started working on renewable energy projects. By 2016, I had 3 projects that I had signed landowner lease agreements with. I was and networked like crazy. So we talked a little bit prior to this about networking. A lot of my networks came from personal contacts, from going to community events, from going to a lot of conferences and such that are in this realm. It doesn't necessarily have to be a renewable energy conference or whatever, but there's a lot of great group events, and hopefully this virus won't shut some of those things down. But so anyway, 2016 I started my project. 2017 I had Met Towers on my sites. A lot of this is personally financed, so I had a lot of skin in the game. And I think a lot of people appreciate that, because it's really hard when you're starting a new company or whatever to actually get enough funding to stay alive. So that's a big deal in the corporate world. Fast forwarding, in 2018 I started looking for partnerships and such. I actually flew over to Europe, talked to some groups over there, and ended up partnering with a German firm on one of my projects, and they're now a majority owner in that project. In 2019, I found out in a little community generation gathering about these amazing grants that were coming out through the grant process through ComGen, and so at the time I had 3 weeks literally to apply for these projects for this grant. People said, well, join up with a cooperative, and you can apply for these grants. And I thought, I don't have time, so I literally made my own cooperative. Grabbed 3 directors and went for it, applied for 2 separate projects. One was rejected. It was a plastics recycling project. That's another passion of mine. But this one proved out. I said, well, what about my wind farm that I've got going. And so it was a great opportunity. So I was able to apply and get some funding to keep this project going. So prior to that, through my cooperative, or through my corporation, we did on this project down south, it's currently scoped at 22 megawatts. We did project siting, we did 5-year land lease agreements with the current property owners. We did the preliminary layout and noise study, and a lot of these things were the high-risk variables that I identified early on in the project process. We did 18 months of avian studies, worked with the U of A, who ran those studies for us. We did high-level environmental and interconnection studies, and marketed like crazy. So from there, the project sat for a bit because the German firm we signed on with our larger project actually didn't want the smaller project. In the international scope on these projects, a lot of the international firms and investors and such don't like anything less than 100 megawatts. So we were kind of I was kind of stuck sitting on this project for over a year until this funding came available. So post-funding, which is a great thing to talk about, because now I know how much I can get done, and I'm kind of coming off the high of doing all this work over the last 10 months. So with the money from the grant, we finished our environmental studies. We're now submitted into the AEP for assessment. We did several versions of yield studies, talked to different turbine companies, got costs, got information from the companies, yield assessments. We did our noise and shadow flicker studies, which are now required for the AUC application. We took down the Met Tower, put new IEC compliant equipment on the tower, and we did a full project financial analysis. We actually worked with BDC and worked with them I took a model from somebody who had given me a model for a 20-year program, and we expanded that to 25 years and just sussed out all the components so that I can actually talk financials now, because that was one of my weaknesses coming in to a lot of this work. We did stakeholder evaluation. We held our first open house last June, and actually got some pretty scary feedback from the community, because our landowners had actually spoken to all their neighbors prior to us even starting the project, and then we found out there were issues. So we're still working through some of those issues with the community, trying to get everybody on board, and that's what's holding up our final AUC application. You know, it's a big step to take it to AUC. There may be some substantial costs involved if you have to go back to the community to do additional studies or whatever. We did high-level engineering, project evaluation. We're in the interconnection study phase right now, so we're working with Fortis and Altalink, and potentially we're hoping to be a community generation project, but we may have a lower cost if we actually do a T connection. So we're evaluating all that work. I actually was working with my tower operator. We were hoping to put a LiDAR on the site, and there was delays around that. So I said, well, why doesn't my corporation buy a SODAR unit, which actually runs better in Alberta than LiDAR, and then we lease that out to the cooperative for the remainder of the program. We are now working. I hired a First Nations consultant for about 6 months of the program, and we're hoping to keep her on. That particular grant funding is now ended, so I'm keeping her on a very part-time basis, and she's learned a lot about renewable energy, so it's really, really great. I bring her on site, and we do a lot of work together, so it's good. And we're actually starting to talk to the First Nations group to see if they want to be proponents going forward as partners, or in some sort of scope. And then we actually rewrote all of our long-term, our land lease agreements to be long-term for the entire scope of the project. So now we have a 5-year option term plus a 25-year agreement in place with the existing landowners. We're also working with adjacent landowners to see if they want to come on board, just having those discussions. We updated our marketing material. We did micrositing and actually geotech work on the site. So we drilled holes, and we know that the site is good to go ahead with. We may have to do some extra footings and such with the bases. And now we're in the phase regrouping and starting to work on new partnerships, looking at PPA agreements, where our off-takers are going to be for the energy. And so done a lot of work in the last 10 months. just need to go to a spa now. Anyway, but this is, I'm just going to show this. It's somewhat proprietary, and you can't see it very well, which is too bad. But we originally were hoping to do 8 turbines on the site, but because of our proximity to other wind farms, we have noise restrictions. So we scaled it down to 4 turbines. So we're actually trying to beef those up. So we're actually looking at technology that hasn't even been built yet to install on site. So it's been a really interesting process. And Peters Energy was instrumental in trying to get the right application to Fortis to evaluate all the options on the site, because we have interconnection nearby, substations a little further away, but we worked really hard. So we've got a combination, so layout map of our setbacks. You can see there's a bird's nest up here. We've got waterways, but we've got just a little bit of room to move, and it makes the project still feasible after all that work. So that's a really great thing to move forward with. We've got 2 minutes left. So this is just an overview of everything I just talked about. Yeah, just did a lot of work, so it's really great. This is a montage that we did, which looks from the highway out to the project, and you see that some of our community kickback was in the visual landscape change. So that's what we got to work through. I guess AUC doesn't necessarily think of that as game changing, but we don't know what we're up against yet for things. And I've heard every worry about these wind farms and such, and so it's a big deal, right? You know, have to be able to talk about all those things. And there's new technologies and such coming out all the time on bird and bat mitigation, noise mitigation. You know, there's a lot of turbines, a lot of things you can work with now, which you couldn't even talk about 5 years ago. So there's really neat stuff coming out, R&D going on all the time. So just looking forward, we have final yield studies to do. We have to do our construction ready plan and really hone in on our capex for the project. We already have a really good idea of that through all our financial work. We're looking for partnerships, and we'll be creating probably a special purpose vehicle for this project. Stakeholder engagement, that is just key going forward, so we'll be working on that. Our AUC application, interconnection commitments, securing the project PPA. We've got 3 different groups who we're talking to right now, and not all in Canada. We're actually looking overseas for some of that work. Procurement and getting the construction done. We're hoping to be operational in 2023, so that's the plan. But yeah, so that's great. That's all we had to say. But thank you so much. And I was going to take questions, but I think we only have 1 minute left.
Right up the question that you have for Charlie.
Okay, very cool. Well, thank you for your attention today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, good morning. It's great to be here today. My name is Cole Einstein. I've been in the renewable energy business for about 15 years, but my background is more utility scale wind projects, so large projects, like Charlene was talking about, 100 megawatts in size, and distribution connected solar projects that are kind of in the vicinity of 20 or 25 megawatts. But this project here, the Ramsey Rink Solar Project, was a bit of a brainchild of mine. I live in the community of Ramsey, which is just east of downtown. I'm sure many of you have been to the Saddle Dome to see potentially a Hitman game or a Flames game. So it's just on the hillside. That's, again, directly east of the downtown portion of Calgary. So this rink here was built in 1977, and just a, yep.
It's a bit flaky.
It's a bit flaky, okay.
Slides for you.
No problem.
Maybe just
Sure, yeah, if
see
you
if
want
I
to
can
get
get it
that.
working, then I'll flip slides.
Perfect. So yeah, this rink is an outdoor rink, and it was built, at least the roof structure was built back in 1977, and it has the capacity to support a large solar project. You can see we've got a lot of square footage on the roof top. We have 1,800 square meters, or about 19,000 square feet of roof area. And if you take a look at the roof, and I have another slide to show you the top of it, there's actually nothing on top of that roof. There's no vent stacks, there's no HVAC units, there's absolutely nothing on that roof. And there is an unobstructed area to the south of the rink itself. There's a large ball diamond there as well. So this makes for, I think, an ideal location for a solar project. The roof itself was just replaced in 2016. So again, it makes, I think, a great spot for a solar project. And there's also a three-phase electrical distribution line that runs 80 meters away from the project. So we can really have a nice large project on this rooftop. So if we just look to the next slide here, I'm just going to give you just a bit of a tour of the rink itself. And I think if you just press the button, there we go. So we just flew a drone over it just a couple of days ago so that you could get a really good idea of what the roof looks like. Again, you can see there's nothing on top of that roof, and it's been sitting there for, 40 years or so. And the one thing about this rink is that it needs some repairs. It needs some repairs, not to the roof structure, but actually to the asphalt below it, and also to the boards. And so we think that there might be an opportunity to get funding both for the solar project, but also to do something kind of interesting to the rink. One of the problems with this rink is it's outdoors. We get a lot of Chinooks in Calgary, so your ice isn't very dependable. So if we're going to remove the asphalt, maybe there's an opportunity to put piping and actually have a chiller for this rink. That now lends a solar project quite well to that rooftop, because we can potentially offset the amount of energy that's used for the chiller to be used from the solar project. So it's a concept that we're working on right now for the project itself. So again, you saw that to the south, which is looking this way, there's nothing there. It's a ball diamond. We also have a school that is just south and east of the rink as well. So a great opportunity for kids to learn about solar and renewable energy. If we just go to the next slide, I'll just show you. Let me just go back one. Yeah, that's the lay of the land here. So again, there's the rink. You can see the large ball diamond here, so that kind of protects our southern exposure. We've got the Ramsey School that's down here. And so there may also be an opportunity for the sale of energy to the school. And again, a really great opportunity for children to learn about solar and renewable energy. And then again, you have this existing three-phase electrical distribution line that, again, extremely close for connection purposes. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. So, current situation right now in Ramsey, shortfall of funds to provide programming and also upkeep of buildings. So there's a community hall, there's the rink, and there's also some other facilities that the community has. Having a solar project and being able to sell that energy and getting some revenue would help support those programs. There's been a significant increase of children in the community and young families in the community. And so this rink, if it could be more dependable and could be upgraded, would be a fantastic spot for, again, sports teams and community events. Again, as I mentioned before, the rink is in need of maintenance. It is owned by the City of Calgary, and the Community Association leases it from the city for a nominal amount. The solar project may enable other exciting programs in the community. So again, either by bringing in funds to run those programs, or if we can combine the solar project with doing upgrades to the asphalt by putting in a chiller, then all of a sudden we can run programs, dependable programs. Because right now, you may get a Chinook that comes in, then the ice is too soft to use. So now all of a sudden you could have a dependable term. So you could go from, like say for example, November through till April, and be able to book it out dependably. I had a chance to talk to the city and a number of community members. They're extremely excited about this project. The city is definitely working with us and trying to make this project a success. So again, we're still at the very early stages here, just doing due diligence, trying to determine if there's capacity on the three-phase line, taking a look at the structure, determining if it can support solar, and now we would need to go to the next phase at looking at funding to do a feasibility assessment. Okay, next slide. Okay, so project benefits. We talked about these in other presentations previously, but I think the biggest one for this project is its revenue generation or cost savings to the community, and it does and can support local economic development. So by encouraging more solar development within the city and within the province. Okay, next slide. So project challenges, again, we've talked about these earlier today. Obviously funding, where's the money going to come from to build a project, especially at this size and scale for a small community association. Securing an energy and carbon credit offtake agreement, those are not easy things to do and take time. And then just navigating bureaucracy within the city of Calgary. This is city lands, municipal lands. The community association has a lease on that property. And so how do we navigate the city folks to allow us to build this project on the rooftop? And then also working with NMAX. As people know, it is difficult to get connection agreements and to truly understand what the capacity is on a 3-phase line early enough so that you're not spending huge dollars before kind of moving forward on a project. So you can't see this one slide here very well, but basically we think we have two options. We can go down the microgeneration approach, or we can do the small scale generation approach. Small scale generation will allow us to sell energy back into the grid, and the microgeneration approach is probably best suited if we go ahead and do a bigger upgrade to the rink, where we're actually putting proper piping and use a chiller system and actually consuming the energy that's generated from the rooftop. Because with microgeneration, you need to consume the energy that's generated on the rooftop on that parcel of land or an adjacent parcel itself. Whereas small scale is you can actually sell to the grid. So I think my time is up. I don't know if we have time for questions. If not, sorry, the size of the array, I should have mentioned that. We can probably put somewhere between 350 and 450 kilowatts on that rooftop. It really depends on what modules we use and any restrictions that we have on the placement of the PV modules on the roof. Initial conversations with the City of Calgary stipulate that we have to have a 2-meter buffer around the perimeter of the rink itself. We could also, on the south side, you notice that there's that wood siding. Yeah, perfect. Wouldn't mind going back. Just a couple more slides. Yeah, right here. There's a sloped angle here, or a sloped portion of the roof. We could potentially put PV modules along there as well to increase the size of the project. So again, still early stages, but it's an exciting project, and we really hope that we can get it off the ground. Also, it's in a really prominent part of Calgary, so it could be a really good showpiece for the city itself. Yep. Okay, yeah, no problem at all. Happy to take questions after. Thank you.
Is the mic working? Oh, this is the mic? Okay. I've got a little bit of a husky voice. Hello? I'm trying to shout.
Okay, so I'll let you take over next.
Okay. So, so we're here to present the project we're working on. This is the Peavine Baby Settlement Community Solar Project. I'm John Colasso. We're the project advisor. I'm from Optima Global, so we're the project development advisor to Peavine.
I'm Lance Gaucher. I'm the project lead with Peavine. And I wasn't there, we had approached OGI to help us out on all these things. They previously did a job for us. They did the rink, Peavine rink.
We went back to, sorry.
And just left it right on the
Oh, there you go. Sorry.
We're one of the 8 settlements in Alberta, and we're the only one that has gotten this far so far. There's 607 members of Peavine, and we're looking to We're looking to build a solar farm of 4.97 megawatts. And I'll let them take over. Indeed.
So yeah, so okay, so yeah, so Peavine is one of the 8 settlements recognized in Alberta. So I guess just to give a little bit of a background, this is not a project that just happened by accident. Right? This is a project that was planned from the beginning. But the experience of Peavine, when this actually started to up to this point, went back all the way to 2017 when one of my colleagues helped them to get funding for a solar installation for the arena. So that's where it started. And back then, there was funding available for this type of community from the Alberta government. So since then, there was really big support coming from the community in terms of this type of initiative. So then it was followed up with there was a community energy planning that we've done for Peavine. And then the funding was available to proceed with a pre-feasibility study at that time. So way back in 2018, we did a pre-feasibility study, and we looked at all the possible renewable energy sources in the area. So we look at wind, we look at hydro, we look at biomass, we look at solar, and it was clear at that time in terms of what's available and what's technically feasible or probable was the solar farm. But it didn't stop there. So what I want to emphasize here is that there was a journey here where Peavine as a community also express what they want. What do they really want to see? It's just like, we just didn't come up here and say, let's build a 5 megawatt power plant. It all went through all of that. That's why we kind of show what Peavine as a community, they have a vision. They want to achieve something. So all of that came as part of this process. So we did a needs assessment, and then we identified what project is more probable, and then we applied for funding, and so we got through that process all the way through. So right now, just to talk about the project, this is very brief. This is located, hopefully it's gonna look like that, it's not there yet, but we have a nameplate capacity of about 5, and this will be connected through the ATCO distribution line up there in the area. So basically, this is within the settlement land. So this is, unlike other projects, where we have to buy, this is within the settlement land. So Peavine Settlement owns the land. It's part of the contribution there. So as you can see, I don't know if it's very clear there, but the land, they have about a 40 to 60 acre land available, which is just really near the current water treatment plant. So the land has been available sitting there, and that's one of the key factors that says, yeah, well, we can use this land for this purpose. As I mentioned, we've gone through the project development process. Now, the project, as you can see in the milestones that we've done, we've completed all of these activities as mandated in the tick boxes, to the point where we have submitted the application to the AUC. So we're now into, we just received a first round of information requests from actually the AEP to some clarifications in terms of our construction start date, but that's not a lot of, we don't see any issues, major issues. And we're looking at summer this year to start construction with, hopefully we can start generating electricity from this project end of the year to early next year. Now, that's a very aggressive kind of time frame. But we're trying to keep our end date we didn't want to move that until we don't want to give up on that. And we know there's a lot of work we need to do. So, and that's one of those things that I brought in there and I shared to Seth. But how did we get here, right? Well, what are the things that work for us? Now, this is, as I said, this is not. We did a lot of work going through the process, but one of the things that with Optima that we partner with Peavine. There's a lot of focus on community capacity building. So we're working with an indigenous group, a community, and there was not a lot of skills or capacity when this started, right? So there was a lot of reliance on third-party suppliers or service providers. But one of the key that we focused here was, we said, we're not gonna do this for you, we're gonna do this together. We're gonna work together on this. We bring the technical expertise, the project management skills and all that, but we wanna make sure that there's a community participation all the way through. That's why Lance is here. So Lance was kind of brought into this when we started. So Lance is our kind of like our counterpart and the project lead for a community. That's one of the key success factors that I want to kind of share. And there was, from the onset, there was a strong leadership support. So the council, everybody there was kind of like, yeah, we're gonna go through this. This is something they really want to do. And the second thing was the regulatory framework, the rules that we have to follow. So again, we're new to this. We're, unlike other people who have done this for years, even then the rules are new. So the AUC Rule 7, AEP. And what I want to emphasize here was this community engagement. So it was mentioned a while back, some folks have shared this experience, but that was one of the key success factors I want to mention. It's specifically required in the Rule 7. So again, Lance with the community help, he went through house to house explaining this. This is not something we just happened by accident. We planned it out. What are we gonna say? How are we gonna say? What are the materials we're gonna use? And what venue do we use this? Okay, so we had community presentations. And all of those were part of that. So, and then you have to record everything. What somebody asked, what are the questions? Everything was kind of logged, and here's a record of that. Again, the thing that I want to mention here, the development process, if you follow that, you go through the pre-feasibility, you go to the full feasibility, you got to have your design, you got to do your geotechnical studies, all of that reduces the risk of your project all the way to the point where you can say, yeah, we can build this at this cost based on this design and all of that. We had an opportunity to be funded by the government of Alberta at that time in 2018. We had all of those funding available, so we were able to tap on that. And of course, this is a grant-funded initiative up to this point. We don't have any more money outside of that, so we will make sure that we control the cost of as we went through this. And last thing is, as probably mentioned already, we are now at the point where we want to hit the ground, we want to break the ground in the summer, but we still don't have all of these funding that we really need to bring the project forward, right? So we're in that stage now where we're approaching lenders and potential investors to participate in this project. But that's what we see because of the sudden shift in government focus. Suddenly there's not of that money that we hoped for when we were looking at this last year, 2 years ago. The approval, the time frame, again, it can happen. The last time we talked to them, they said, yeah, you're on the second in the queue, and now we're looking at your project, but we don't really know when that's going to be given, right? And of course, the weather. And yeah, that's all we have. Thank you.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Dirk's going first.
Yeah, I'll just sit up here.
Yeah, right here. No, you had it there, sir. No, back to the folder.
Oh, folder.
Yes, that one.
Okay. All right.
Control L.
Control L.
Maybe
Teamwork.
bail out of that Windows update.
Oh, of course. Should we do it now? Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm Kirk Davis. I'm with Longview. I'm on the Economic Development Committee, a volunteer for the Economic Development Committee. Just as a backup, Longview has a population of 300. We've been through a long process for a while. We first started off with net metering. We were going to put it on the community center, but the community center roof couldn't support it, so we had no other buildings. But along came the Community Generation Capacity Building Program. And this is one of the results of it, thanks to Skyfire, one of our helpers on the projects. The project is, you see two bodies of water. That was our lagoons. We had a quarter section of property. We were forced to buy or not be a village anymore rather than dumping it into the river. We had to have lagoons, which is still not quite right. But we had about 90, 100 acres around there still available, which we weren't using. Down at the bottom, there's a gray portion. That's a couple pump jacks, about 4 pump jacks. On top of the hill is a gas plant. Down below is another gas plant. So we're heavily involved in energy, but we want to change the energy around a little bit. What we're proposing is a 20 meg DC solar farm. You can see it takes up most of the property there. Then what we're going to do, there's 42,000 panels. We're lucky that we got the feasibility study for about 150,000. That really started us going along. We've just about spent it all. What we've done through this project, we've run from Fortis and Altalink. We've got approved to put 18 meg AC, which is a result of about 20 meg DC for this plant. So that's been approved at about level 3, but we still have to go for the high level, which is going to cost another $70,000 or so. We're looking for something like that. We've done the ground study, the geotech studies, load testing, environmental studies are all completed. Sorry, I didn't have a PowerPoint, and I just flew in earlier. Literally, my arms are tired. So we've done environmental, historic, community engagement. Now, there was the fun part, community engagement. For this has been about 5 years, this project. Started all these little projects, so I slowly got all the community into this project. I also am a solar nut myself. I have a 15K on my roof. It's net zero housing that I have. So there was some belief that I knew what I was talking about a little bit. I fooled them, right? So every meeting I would do another little presentation. Finally, the council got involved in this. But all along, the council says we can't spend a cent. They couldn't spend the $100,000 for just the net metering project. So the village is in hard financial times, but so long as I didn't cost any money, I could keep going forward. So I had one community engagement that went very well. Again, the financial thing was very easy. You're not going to spend any money. But then what would this look like? How big would this be? So this is part of the problems we've had. It was pretty fun. It worked out pretty well. The community got right involved in it. Now, we finished our feasibility study. It's about a $30 million project. We also have a Plan B, which is going to go down to a 4 meg project. So that's Plan B. That could fit in with maybe a co-op in size or something would be good for. So there's two plans. I have tons and tons of paper. The reason because I come in late last night, I don't have all the pictures involved for this or all the reports, and I didn't want to drag in a 13-page geo study and all of this information. Here's some pictures just to prove there somebody was there and equipment. This was the geo study proving that there is ground and how much ground, how much clay. And then we had other drillers come in and put pile drives in and test whether or not what force it took to get them out. Just keep flipping through. Our major problem right now is funding. And what the plan is, we're not going to do it. What we're going to do is sell this project. Sell the project, and hopefully with linear tax, the lease costs, and maybe some other gratuities from the buyer, and maybe get a small portion of it to use within the village for power. That's what we're looking for, and that's been our next stage right now. We've got a nice package put together. It very much looks feasible. We've got a few minutes, and and another problem is the funding, and we're in the process of developing the community benefit agreement. And I think this is going to be one of the first ones that will be created. I am trying to find anybody that has one as a template we could use going forward. If we get one, we'll obviously give it out to anybody else and also lease agreements and some help on financing. I'm just the sole guy doing this, so I'm trying to sell this project, but I want to make sure I don't mess up this with the village, and they have to have a big debt. One classic thing with community engagement I found is I was always prepared for it. One of the things that turned out to be the biggest thing is that Medicine Hat disaster. They had a $3 million solar farm that was thrown out, never had any money. Everybody was talking about that one. So I was all prepared for that, had examples of why that didn't work and why it wasn't a PV panel. So anyways, that's the story. Thanks.
There it is. This deck.
Just really quick thing, just to be really sensitive to this and a little bit more into the, thanks.
Right here?
You should be able to see yourself on the screen.
Got it. This deck is not entirely appropriate for, where's the clicker? For today's audience. It was created more for general public, and you guys are a little smarter than general public. So I'm going to blast through certain parts of this, but I wanted to hit some highlight stuff. So we just signed the paperwork last week for the Bull Valley Green Energy Co-op. But a little bit about me, like others here, I've got 10 kilowatts on my roof, and my house is energy positive, and I figured out how to make it pay in 6 years. Cool. We've also gotten a number of organizations through the United Nations and the IPCC, and the opportunity with this group is we're actually looking to figure out if we can put this through the IPCC and their sectorial calls for partnerships. One of Canmore's problems is we don't have very much flat land in the entire Bow Valley, and most of that's owned by the three major developers. And the municipalities want to retain their public buildings for their own solar and green energy projects. So we're a genesis of, pardon me? Yeah, Vanna, do your thing. Yeah. So the Biosphere is an entity that's in the Bow Valley, and we're a child of that. We're just being launched currently. So I'm going to tell you a couple quick things. I'm going to tell you what we've done, what we're going to do, what we have planned, and what we learned this week, which is really interesting. But I want to talk about my goal. My goal is to match 8-minute power in the United States. And those of you who follow them, they just signed a 25-year PPA. They've got 3,000 projects, I think, now. They just signed a 25-year PPA with the city of LA for solar at 1.9 cents a kilowatt and battery at 1.3 cents a kilowatt. Yeah, exactly. How did they do that? So I called them up. I go, how'd you do this? And they said, cheap Mexican labor was the first. They don't have the import tariff that we have in Canada on our solar panels there. A 30% contribution from the federal government.
Just dropped 26.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. And they're making money. And they get to build for less than $1 a watt. which is why I asked that question. So right now we're at $1.58 a watt in our first project. And we're trying to get down to $1 a watt with grants or anything else we can find to pull together to actually be somewhere below grid in terms of our costs. Now we also have the town of Canmore, who's declared a climate emergency, and the town of Banff that has a really aggressive sustainability plan. And both those organizations want to have 100% green power ASAP. So they're absolutely willing to sign PPAs with us. So we have a willing output partner. So the next parts are what you're all wrestling with. So I'll leave it with, before I dive into this, we're looking at a 9% ROI with our first project. So we're not worried about raising money. In fact, the Banff Canmore Community Foundation, which is sitting on $13 million, approached us and said, can we invest in your projects? Cool, go ahead. Now we're gonna blast through this. So we looked at, as part of our background, we looked at all these things. We looked at the sites. We did probably 15 to 20 sites in Canmore and then the equivalent number in Banff, trying to figure out where are good places to go. Small projects, it's really hard to make money because you have all that offset costs that are associated with it. So we're trying to figure out where that threshold number is. The other part is we don't want to stay just to solar. So as an example, we have a waste commission, and as most of you do, when you have capped cells in a waste commission, what do? How can you monetize that? Well, Exshaw has tremendous winds. If you've driven through there, it's two hands on the wheel. So the regular solars, the regular windmills don't work well there because the winds are so shifty. But the small scale horizontal ones that look like small propellers that are easy to spin with the winds, those might work there. So the Waste Commission is very interested in us also putting some on some of their landfill sites that are closed. So that might be project 2. We're going to do an analysis on that to figure out the modeling. You've got wind. Yeah, you definitely have wind. So it might work if you have your own landfill. Keep going. So we have 60 homes in Canmore that have solar out of 3,400 homes. The barriers are significant. First of all, we have a big mountain in the way and we have other stuff, but in spite of that, people don't want to be able to take that fiscal leap. And even with the programs that NMAX have, which is 25% down and the rest over time, people are hesitant to take that leap. So what we're trying to build is a model where you could give us $1,000 and it goes into a solar project and you feel like you own it. So to take your guys' ideas, I like that. Own a panel, take that. So that's what we're looking at. We're trying to figure out how to make this whole thing work, which is what all of you are wrestling with. Go ahead. So our first project is on a brand new build that's going to be in Canmore, and it's going to be 400 kilowatts. Yeah. So this is basically how our economic model works, where the host partner receives the energy first, and then it goes to the grid. Go ahead. Okay. So this was subsequent. This is where we were a short time ago, and we're trying to get well below that in our modeling right now. I want to talk later about the carbon stuff, so we don't get to it. Remind me to get to the carbon, because I think we've created an internal carbon market as well. Go ahead. Current model, you guys are totally familiar with that. Go to the next one. Yes, there's over 30 co-ops coast to coast, and we've studied every single one of them. And then there's a bunch of private companies that are doing work. Some of them you know about. Keep going. Okay, so the modeling from ASOS suggests that there might be declining energy costs, not on the wire side, okay, thank you, but on the other side. This, we don't know if that's going to decline. We know weather's a factor, and we know that wind, hail, etc. might be an issue. We put together a team of people. I won't spend time there, but all of us are serial entrepreneurs and somehow associated with green energy. And Jeff Roberts is retired, and he's busier than ever, so we love it. Go ahead. So we did our article of incorporation. We figured out that it's not 256, it's going to be 400. And we've identified the key location. Well, we've got a picture of that. Keep going. Keep going. Going. Oh, wait a sec. Where's the? Oh, they took the picture out of it. We have a picture of this new development that's going to be built. So we're trying to go from where we are now to build all the modeling, and where's our lawyer? There he is. To build all of our modeling, raise the funds, and they will be ready for installation in December. So we're going to do our first installation in December. Now I want to talk about the thing we just found out this week, which is super cool. So we were approached by one of the license holders in the Banff Park, and they think within a relatively short period of time, the licenses in the national parks will be conditional upon meeting the federal government's climate change goals. And they had done the work of analyzing what their GHG footprint was, and in this case it was 800 tons annually. Yesterday I got approached by the town of Banff and said, can you build a model for us where the 4 million guests who come into the town all have a way of buying their own carbon footprint and paying for the carbon footprint? You guys are all getting where I'm going, aren't you? I can see this. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to build that model and see if we can get it through the town of Banff. We will buy carbon credits at the unregulated price of $4 to $11, but we're going to charge $30, which is the Fed mandated price. There's a margin to work on. Suddenly now we have an economic lump that we can then invest in green energy projects in the Bow Valley. Now we've got carbon credits to work with. And providing it meets the CSA standards, I don't think it has to go through tiers. I think we can simply have it that it meets the CSA standards. And if the Banff Parks allows these carbon credits to be acquired, we've created an internal carbon market. That's this week's learning. This is absolutely only theoretical. We haven't gone very far beyond theory, but the elements of it are standing there all going, we want to be part of this. So that's this week's work. Cool. Questions? Yes, sir.
For your ROI and cost per watt, are you including a grant to actually lower that cost, or are you getting the full project cost?
Full project.
Okay.
And we're trying to figure out the economic modeling of return on investment. Is it 4%? And then we take the remainder and put it into the next series of projects. We don't know what our investors are going to want. If an entity like the Banff Canmore Community Foundation said, we will backstop your first project to make sure you get a successful launch, and we will take half of it, then that makes, we only have to raise $200,000 from the community. You only have to imagine if you do a series of projects that are entirely based upon the community investing, they're going to run out of invested people who want to be part of that over time. And so finding these corporate partners that have a social goal as well is something that's recently come up for us. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Why not partner with like Green Gate or something like that, like another private developer to work with you guys on a cooperative model that don't have trouble raising capital?
You're right, and if we have to go beyond the Bow Valley to raise money, then that totally makes sense. We don't know yet exactly the economic modeling. Like literally, you were there last week, we created our modeling, we're working with accountants to create what we're creating, so, and then we want to test the market, and then you have the doldrum of June 15th to September 15th. We're trying to figure out if we can get to the market before June 15th, or we have to wait, build our model, and then hit it after September 15th. Yes, sir.
How do private investors or potential candidates, private investors, know about when you're putting up your proposal?
Excellent question. The Biosphere has a pretty big following. They did a call for interest, say 7 months ago, and they got 125 people like myself who went, I'm interested. So those 125, and then there was a big public call. We're invited to a public meeting that we had, bringing everybody up to speed with here's where we are, and here's where we might go. And again, the interest was high, and they're waiting for something substantial. So we'll use the local marketing footprint first to measure what the Bow Valley's interest is. And if there's enough there for the first project, great, we're on the path. And if it's not, then we'll have to do something. and we're not saying that something is, but finding out other entities that want to come in, and 9% ROI is a decent number, it doesn't scare people away, and it comes back to trying $1.58 now per watt, and trying to get down to $1 a watt. More questions? No? Well, I'm not going anywhere, so if questions happen, please approach.
Gonna add in sort of a last minute presentation. David McAllister, I think, has got we're giving him 7 minutes. We sort of trimmed it down a little bit. But an interesting project with hydro. He's with Western Irrigation District. So I'm gonna ask him to come up here and just talk about the 2 projects that he's involved in. Yeah, for sure.
This is about where I should be?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, no slides, just me, and 7 minutes. So
6.5 now.
6.5 now. So, general manager at the Western Irrigation District. 13 irrigation districts in the province convey a significant portion of the water. For us, we operate east of Calgary, based in Strathmore. When we look at our operations as an irrigation district, there are several things that we can integrate. We have water, so that's where we'll talk a bit about the hydro. We also have existing operations, some of which are energy intensive. So I'll start talking about the solar because I've heard that a lot in the room. We had a pump station where we had some excess land, significant energy draw there. We looked at it, could have been community generation, could have been micro generation like some of the other projects that have been presented today. Made sense for us to go with micro generation. Applied to the residential and commercial solar program. We're going to be saving $50,000 in energy costs in pumping. Year 1 just was commissioned in this past October. Great thing about solar on irrigation projects is we run water to farms 5 months of the year. 7 months we sell back onto the grid continuously. It's a very different model perhaps than others are dealing with who have a continuous draw. We're very seasonal. So we have that installed. We have daily reporting, and my IT guy comes to me and he says, "Oh, we made $150 yesterday," and that's what we made yesterday because he came to see me yesterday, and he's right into it. And again, for us, it means at that pump station we are now net zero. So power prices can fluctuate as they wish to, and we won't be expending that in energy costs. So we are looking at an 8% return on investment, payback period in 12.5 years at current power prices. If they go up, we're completely insulated from that, and the payback period would correspondingly go down. With the grant, we were at $1.15 to $1.20 in terms of dollars per watt. So again, a project we're very enthusiastic about. Like I said, don't have anything to put on the screen, but if you want, you can see the progress pictures on my cell phone of, again, out in the, we've talked a lot about the urban context today, in the rural context, completely south-facing site, existing power because we were powering a pump station that already had the capacity, and no obstructions within our existing right-of-way, only required the electrical permit from the municipality. Lots of things lined up very well for this project. So, like I said, come see me for the pictures. Second, on the community generation capacity building, we got a $195,000 grant from the province to look at a hydro system at Eagle Lake, which is, as many of you know, east of town. That's a reservoir that we own. Again, not really online right now. Because, again, it's at the bottom of a basin. Most people have looked at pump storage hydro as have a reservoir up, pump up. We already have a reservoir down. We know we can put the water down there, and if we don't ever need to pump it back up, we only need to pump it back up when we need it for irrigation purposes, and it already has a natural outlet. It would work much better than spilling the water, and there are potential partnership opportunities as well. So we have completed a development plan at the end of December, and again, this is where the one we're looking for funding for, because there's a whole bunch of benefits socially. We would have increased drought mitigation, flood mitigation, because it currently drains a full township block, so 25,000 acres of drainage, that instead of being worried about flooding, we could take it and it would have a home. So a few different things like that that make this project particularly advantageous, and we're also looking in other locations at in-stream hydro. So there's organizations like ours who are a large-scale, owner that have operations where maybe you can bolt on renewable energy, and it's interesting about finding the systems. And like I said, the solar project we looked at was such a slam dunk for us in terms of what we were able to achieve, and we're hoping that the next phases of renewable projects we do are the same thing, that they can bolt on to our existing operations and have high return on investment, because it's stuff we would be already doing anyway. So I appreciate your taking the time, and I'm glad to take any questions, and if you do want to see photos, glad to run anybody through that. Sorry? If we were to go at it ourselves, it would be 16 million. But again, a lot of it, there's existing infrastructure, so that's where we've looked at grant funding programs as well. Again, for that project, there's, if we just used our water license, that would be one thing. There are potential partners who we could convey for that would significantly increase that project. And then the in-stream hydro, there's a number of systems that we're looking at in various locations, and we're already running the water. The water's already there, leverages easily. We're flowing down some of our canals. We're already flowing enough to generate a 1 megawatt system in line seasonally. So definitely something that we're exploring going forward.
Do you have any grant funding for your solar project?
Sorry?
Do you have any grant funding at capital?
Yeah, the grant funding that we got was through the residential and commercial solar program for the micro generation. We were originally hoping that we could build out the full site. We were able to build out 2 acres, the site's 7 acres. But to comply with the terms of the microgen, that was only to balance our draw, we figured it made more sense and most sense to take that level of grant funding. And like I said, our cost was between $1.15 and $1.20 at the end of that. So.
Is there potential for communities to be partnering more across Alberta with their water management groups and things like that? Because it sounds like there's sort of the community gets their generation when it's available, and then the water management gets when it's used, and both of them win.
I think there's significant opportunity for that. We talk a lot with our local municipalities. We operate in 5 different municipal jurisdictions. That's Rockaby County, Wheatland County, Town of Strathmore, City of Chestermere, and our diversion is off of 17th Avenue in Calgary. You'll see that concrete structure that's 100 years old. Well, it is 100 years old, and it was built in 1903 to take our water out to Chestermere Lake. So there's significant opportunities to work together, especially where one agency has a significant demand in an area, and then one can generate and use it on an as-needed basis, and that occurs both seasonally, time of day, all that kind of thing. So irrigation districts qualify under community generation as well. Again, we're not for profit, service the benefit of our irrigators, and glad to work with municipalities, and I think there's plenty of opportunities there. So excellent.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Could we just get all the presenters to stand up for a second for 2 purposes? One, for sort of visual cue recognition. If I need to find you, if I've got a question. Folks give me this afternoon, and to give these folks a round of applause. We're going to do a group building exercise just before lunch, which was really unanticipated. So a human pyramid that is. We would like to get a photo for the ACCA newsletter. So what's going to happen is that we're going to put our photographer probably on a chair over here. But if we can maybe we'll sort of hold these 4 tables where you are, and then bring everybody behind so that we don't have people kind of crouching and awkwardly kind of mounting each other. That isn't what it's meant to be at all. But come here and fill the gap, and then we'll get the photo from this angle over here. And then we're rolling into lunch. We'll get the photograph and walk through the rest of the program. Yeah.